Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll get underway. There might be a few latecomers who flow in, but that's okay. We'll press on. My name's Janet Scorer. I'm the New South Wales Children's Guardian. It's great to have you here today. Let me start by acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders, past, present and future. Thanks for coming today. We've got a lot to get through to tell you a bit about where the Working with Children Check Renewal's up to. I'm going to do a presentation in some detail so that you get a bit of an idea of where we're going and leave you plenty of time at the end for questions. We've got some drinks and some lunch up the back so that if you want to spend some time and use the opportunity with your colleagues here to network, we're really happy for you to do that. So what I want to do is work out how the clicker works.
There you go.
Wasn't in. There you go. Get it up. Okay. So what we'll do today is I'll talk through the Working with Children Check Renewal process from the perspective of the employer and the employee. Give you a bit of an update on where the phase-in schedule's up to and just a broader sense of where child safe work is up to in general. And as I said, plenty of time for questions at the end. Firstly, a little bit about us and what we do. The Office of the Children's Guardian is really about promoting and creating safe places for kids across New South Wales. We do that through a variety of functions. We regulate organisations and individuals who provide services to children. We educate employers and organisations about their responsibilities in keeping children safe. We monitor organisations to make sure that they continue to maintain a good standard of practice, and we try and facilitate sector-wide cultural change to enable all of our organisations and communities to be safe for children. We do this by having a really broad interaction every year with 1.5 million people who work in child-related work in New South Wales, about 30,000 organisations who deliver child services in New South Wales. There are about 20,000 adults who are on the Carers Register, which is the register you guys would know for people who are providing out-of-home care for kids in statutory care. We accredit all the organisations who provide out-of-home care in New South Wales. We register organisations who provide voluntary out-of-home care for mostly children with disabilities. We regulate employers who employ children in modelling and the entertainment industry. And we provide a range of resources and training face-to-face, online, and a range of other forms around child safe organisations across the state every year. So we have a broad interest and a broad role, but at the heart of it, it is about creating safe places for children. New South Wales was the first state to introduce a Working with Children check, and we did that in 2000. And then the online checking system came into place in 2013, and thus the point of time of renewal that we're up to. The main difference for us and the main strength of the check is the continuous monitoring and the continuous check. And what that means is that it's not a point in time check. It relates to any changes in criminal activity or any changes in an individual over the time of the check, and we know of that straight away and make an assessment about whether that person should continue to work with children. And that really importantly relates to your role as an employer in verifying who works for you, so that if someone's circumstances change, we can tell you straight away and you can make decisions about how to manage the risk around them. As you know, in being here, the check is reviewed at the end of the 5-year period, and we do a full check again on everyone at that point of renewal. There have been many changes over the years to the Working with Children check to enable it to be contemporary and really to strengthen it further over time. At the heart of that is making sure that it continues to be oriented within contemporary child safe practices. Because as we know, it's only one tool of what we do as organisations to make sure that children are safe when they're accessing our services. So we really encourage organisations to think about and identify and manage all the processes and environmental risks that are unique to your organisation that are important for keeping children safe. Screening's one part, but it also goes to other processes like recruiting and codes of conduct and complaints policies and that sort of things. And we do a lot of work in following up with organisations about their compliance of that through our compliance team with the Working with Children check. So who needs a check? Anyone who is in paid or unpaid child-related work needs to have a Working with Children check in New South Wales and is not subject to exemptions. As an employer, you can seek to have approval from me to have the position deemed as an additional child-related work. So this might be, for example, someone who is accessing an administration person who is seeing and managing a lot of detailed and personal child's records, or your HR people who might be looking at particular workplace records. And so employers seek the exemption for me to have those positions deemed as in child-related work. But that doesn't apply if someone is a volunteer. So we are now at the renewal phase of the Working with Children check, and what that means is that people who got their check in 2013 need to renew it this year. We went through a phase-in process for bringing different sectors into the Working with Children check. The last of those are finding their way through now. And the process then starts again of people renewing. Employees renewing use the same number. You don't need to reapply for a check, you just use the same number. So like your licence or insurance, you still carry the same number with you throughout the time that you have a check, and we will renew against that. But as employers, you need to re-verify that you have those same people working for you so that we can have that continuous monitoring process in place. And it's your responsibility to have some records and understand who works for you and what the status is of their check and when the date is that it expires, so that you can make sure your records and your verification is up to date. We're really trying to make the process as simple as possible for employees and for employers with the renewal process. What we'll do is send an email and various other communications to employees 3 months before their renewal date, and to ask them at that point to make sure that their details are up to date and to make sure that they start the application process. As I said, it's not about reapplying; it's just about renewing the process. It'd be great at this point in time, before the 3 months are up, to remind people to update their details so that we can get in touch with them. So the 3 steps that are up here on the slide, and lots of this will be on our website, so don't feel you need to jot all that down. There'll be a hyperlink on our website to take you to the renewal form online, and remember that it is a renewal. And once you've been through that process, you get a reference number. You take that reference number to Service New South Wales and provide your identification and pay the $80 again, and if you're in paid work, and then let your employer know that you have renewed your Working with Children check so they can re-verify you. So a fairly simple process, and I'll go through how you can find that online in a moment. The cost will stay at $80 for paid checks. It hasn't changed in 5 years. The renewal and the check will still remain free for volunteers, and the employee still is the one who pays the fee. So this equates to about $16 a year for a check for an employee, and in some instances it's tax deductible. Any changes that we'd make in the future to the cost of the check, we'll let employees know about well in advance, but really will only reflect where CPI changes and increases might need to increase the cost for it. You'll find all of the information on our website, and I'll just go through now some of the areas where you might find that information and how to access it. So what we're developing is a new microsite attached to our website that will enable the process for applicants and for employers to be streamlined. So you can see there that there's, hopefully you can see it up the back. It's a lot simpler. There are fewer clicks. Those are not two easy words to say together. And you can also search for, using your information, if you don't know what your check number is anymore, you can search for that, find that, and then kick into the process quite quickly, update your details. So you'll be able to go to the site and identify if you are an employer and if you're an active employer and you need to verify employees, or if you're a new employer and you need to register to say that you're employing people who are in child-related work. The other option there is parents, and that's to enable parents who are privately employing individuals to be able to verify or to check that the people who are providing private services for their children have the right screening in place. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we enhance the way we interact with you as employers and employees over time to make it simpler. So some of the improvements that we've made is about our email receipts, so that you can have access to those more easily. We've made improvements to how we match people who are working for different people and who might have different identities. We're trying to minimise the duplication of entries in our Working with Children check system. We're trying to streamline the new to renewal application process and make sure that notifications are streamlined, and to make sure that the search interface when you're trying to find information for yourself or an employee is easier as well. So for employers, a reminder that a person can't continue to work in a child-related role if their clearance expires. That is unlawful. And so, as I said before, you having an idea of when people's check expires and that they have renewed that and you've verified that is really important. And you need to ask your staff that they've done that, because, as I said, it's their responsibility to make sure that they do that. You need to re-verify their number for the next 5 years, and to keep your own records of when that is expiring again in 5 years' time. Go through that one again. So this is the verification. If you can see that up the back, it will be 3 simple steps for you to re-verify that you have someone in your employment. You can check your records to identify which child-related workers have a Working with Children check and when the number expires. Go to our website and log in with your employer details, and then generate the number and the list of people who work for you, and our records will tell you to when their check expires. So what happens if you don't? We have our compliance team who conducts various audits and contacts employers throughout the year. It is an offence to work in a child-related role if you don't have a current and valid Working with Children check number. As you know, you can work under an application number, but you need to have that in train. But if you're a barred or interim barred, you certainly can't work with children. And it is an offence to employ or engage people in child-related work if they don't have a valid Working with Children check number, or if they've been barred and there is a reasonable fine for that. So what does barred mean, for those of you who don't know? So if the renewal or our continuous checking of people who have a check results in us identifying records, we would move them from a clearance to a bar, and we'd need to have your details as their employer to be able to tell you that their circumstances had changed. If they're barred or placed under an interim bar, then your obligation is to remove them from child-related work, and that might be suspending them from work or transferring them into a role that is not to do with children. You are not under any legal obligation to find them an alternative position if that's the case. What we've learned over these many years that we've been doing the check and to understand it is that with having 1.5 million adults around New South Wales with the check, it means that we have a good understanding of where some of the risks and where some of the emerging changes are in how we need to adapt our child-safe work in New South Wales. And having the interaction with 30,000 employers and clubs, local sporting clubs and schools and out of school hours care, and everyone who provides different services to children outside of their home means that we can understand what it means to keep children safer. We really want to acknowledge that sectors have such a strong willingness to work with us to be compliant and to keep the system strong, and we really appreciate how often we're welcomed in, asked for our advice, asked to provide in-house training or support, and we're very willing to do that. But as I said before, the check is really just one element of what it means to keep children safe. So some of the common questions that we get, and what we'll do after each of these sessions in the next little while is keep a record of the questions that we're asked. We'll put them up on our website. You can always email us and ask any other questions if you'd like to. If you haven't recorded, what happens if you haven't recorded your full workforce's expiry dates? Then you'll need to go to our website, seek their expiry date, and to retrieve that information to be able to verify them. If your employee gives you a different Working with Children check number, it might mean that they've reapplied, and that will mean that you need to verify the new number and let us know. And why do you need to re-verify? Because, as I said before, this is about connecting the employee and their continuous check with you as their employer to make sure that they are safe to work with children in an ongoing way. We also have some legislative changes that we're expecting in the next couple of months. We conducted a review of the legislation that underpins the Working with Children check last year, and so that will progress through Parliament, we're hoping in the middle of April this year. Really what the bulk of those changes do is respond to the Royal Commission into Institutional Child Sexual Abuse to enable us to have and to interact with a nationally consistent Working with Children check scheme over time. It also responds to, as you'd expect a statutory review to do, responds to the changing community expectations about what a screening function like this should do to protect children, and that practice and policy changes, and we've responded to that. So we will keep you up to date on what those changes mean, but for now the check continues as it is. We have a newsletter in the OCG. That's where we'll let you know about other changes, and so you're welcome to subscribe to that and we'll keep you up to date. Any information on the renewal is available on our website. There are a range of resources that are available there, and we're happy to provide them to you or assist your organisation. There are all of our free resources around our child safe training, our e-learning packages, and Safe Space, which is for organisations who are working with children with disability and their families. And I really encourage you to make use of all of those because they're tremendous resources, as well as the training. That was all I wanted to say from up front, and I'd really value any time you want to take to ask questions about where we are now, so thank you.